morning, everyone, and welcome to the 21-22 opening of school. We're so excited about the year, and we're so glad you're here. Well, technically you're not here, but we know you're in your building. I told Carol this morning and others that one of the most exciting things that we have each year is our opening, and it's been at Poplar Grove. And the buzz in the air, the excitement in the air is always tremendous, and I miss that part of being together. Now, we do have the leadership team and some board members here in the Teacher Center today, and the buzz is still here. It's just not quite as loud as it would be if we were all together at the Poplar Grove gym. We hope you've had an opportunity this summer to be with your family and friends. After the year we've had, or the 18 months we've had, I know you needed that time to recuperate, to rest, and rejuvenate, and we're excited about the school year. This year, as I said earlier, we're streaming because of the construction that's going on at Poplar Grove, at the gym, and for the PAC. Our plan is for next year to be able to have our opening of schools in our Performing Arts Center. So we're excited about that. I would like now for you to please stand for our Pledge of Allegiance, led by some of our summer MAC students.
Recording. Okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Dr. Decker, our Associate Director for Teaching and Learning, to come forward to give a welcome from Teaching and Learning. And after Dr. Decker, Dr. Esslinger, Associate Director of Finance and Administration, will introduce our new employees.
Thank you, Dr. Snowden. Good morning and welcome. As Eleanor Roosevelt eloquently stated, the world of the future is in our making. The future is now. I can think of no better way to describe the beyond valuable work you do each and every day. Thank you. Know that you have my support as well as that of the entire teaching and learning team. I know that in your hands, this will be a remarkable year. Thank you.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's exciting to be here with you all this morning. It is my honor to introduce to you the newest family members to the Franklin Special School District. And as I call your name from every site, I ask that you stand, and so we can give you the warm welcome that you so deserve. We'll start with the Central Office Annex. Melissa Lopez and Shelley Robinson. Welcome. All right, with Franklin Elementary School, we have 3 new employees. Paola Gerardo, I practiced some of these names, Paola Gerardo and Debra Patterson and Alicia Shea. Welcome. From Freedom Intermediate School, Melissa Collingwood, Kelly Lawrence, Nelda McCain, Amanda Roberts. Welcome to Freedom Intermediate School. Freedom Middle School, Julia Culp, Susan Day, Darby Farley, and Stephanie Wharf. Welcome to Freedom Middle School. Johnson Elementary School has 2 new employees, Lisa Barton and Jim Hamilton. Welcome to you two. Liberty Elementary School, Abigail Baines, Amelia Kiger, Megan McDaniel, Kristen Ruzika, Thelma Sindor, Kristen Wessels, and Abby Williams. Welcome to Liberty Elementary School. Moore Elementary has 2 new employees. They are Elise De La Pena and Kimberly Flint. Poplar Grove Elementary School may have the winning list. Poplar Grove Elementary School has several. New employees at Poplar Grove Elementary are Aurora Casillas Trejo, Rachel Crawley, Carla Dalton, Oliver Fell, Marisha Finley, Christopher Kurgan, Whitney Rushing, and Allison Ware. Welcome. Poplar Grove Middle School, Alicia Bird, Dawn Gore, Barbara Jones, and Rosemary Mabry. Welcome to Poplar Grove Middle. And in our transportation department, we have 1 new employee, and that is Mr. Roger Smith. Welcome, Roger. Thank you. Wish you all the best of a new year.
Thanks, and we'd also like to welcome our new employees. We're excited for you to join our FSSD family. Before beginning my brief remarks this morning, I wanted to introduce a very special group, and that's our board members. We have some in attendance today, and some could not make it. They're at their regular jobs, their paying jobs. First is our board chair, Mr. Robert Blair. He's with us today. Dr. Alicia Barker is our vice chair. She couldn't be here today. Ms. Alina Bell is our treasurer. She's here, and happy birthday, by the way, Ms. Bell. Mr. Kevin Townsend, our secretary, is with us also. Ms. Robin Newman, member, and Mr. Stillings, member, are not able to be here with us today. We're very blessed to have this group of individuals who work together to provide tremendous support for the students and employees of the Franklin Special School District. Each year, the process, the board reviews and discusses the district, and each year, as you can imagine, there are always significant challenges in the development and the adoption of a budget. This budget year was no different. Our board does a great job in their fiscal responsibility, and in addition, they understand and appreciate the efforts made by each employee every day, especially the efforts over the past 18 months. Even with difficult challenges in the budgetary process, they were focused on providing all employees with an increase in salary while continuing to maintain a high-quality benefit package. In the 21-22 budget, in addition to continuing that excellent benefit package, the board approved a 3% cost of living increase for all full-time employees and a step increase for all employees, even if they're currently at the top of their specific salary schedule. A step increase represents about an average of 2%. That means all employees will receive a total increase of approximately 5%. I know they can't hear you, but would you give them a round of applause? Other than our new employees, we've added some new canine friends to the Franklin Special School District family in our therapy dog program. As you know, we've had Maddie for a few years at Johnson, and she does a great job. Last year, we also added Tobin at FIS, Alma at Poplar Grove School, and Buddy joined us at Moore Elementary for the latter part of the year. Joining those this year will be Blake at Franklin Elementary School, Star at Liberty Elementary School, and Siggy at Freedom Middle School. Now, some of our canine friends are still in training. They will continue to be in training until they can become a certified therapy dog. Those of you that have had an opportunity to be around Maddie, you understand the positive impact that she has not only on students, but all of us as adults who have had contact with her. And over the past 18 months, I think you would say that we all needed some therapy. As we prepare for this new school year, I want to take an opportunity to again thank you for the monumental efforts you provided during the last school year and during the extended closure prior to last year. The professionalism and dedication displayed by FSSD were truly amazing. You are anxious about every aspect related to school and the pandemic, including your own health, and this is a natural response for certain. Regardless of your own anxiety, you were there for your students and your colleagues. Besides teaching, which is challenging enough each day, you took on the responsibilities of helping to implement all of our mitigation protocols and to try to keep everyone as safe as possible. Our teachers, our counselors, our staff made sure students received strong instruction for both the standards for the new year and those missed during the previous year. In addition, as always, you continue to nurture and to show love and support to students. We all knew everyone would need that love and support, especially in the areas of social and emotional health. That's just what you do. That's what you do every year, and especially during the pandemic. What about our nurses? Wow. Would you want to be a nurse last year? Anywhere, but not in the FSSD either. They work long hours, and they strive to keep all of us safe and healthy as possible. Our technology staff, including the techs, everyone, they were so supportive of not only all of us in school, but during the remote and virtual learning. Our custodians worked diligently to disinfect and to sanitize all areas of schools and offices. The child nutrition staff, yeah, I know it's food and culinary services, Ms. Cross, made sure students were fed not only during the school year, but also during the summer months and during our extended closure. Our bus drivers helped in the summer meal program and then helped to keep students safe as they were transported. Our maintenance and landscaping personnel also took on many different roles other than their normal duties. Our MAC and our WEMAC employees continued that love and support in both the morning and afternoon care program. The office personnel in the schools and in the central office were forced to also take on additional responsibilities. And all the school and district administrators and supervisors were focused on how best to support the students and the adults throughout the district. We also cannot forget how well our students did during last year through the many different times of quarantine and how they cooperated in the mitigation protocols. Just like all of you, they demonstrated tremendous resiliency. And what about our FSSD parents? They demonstrated a tremendous amount of patience throughout a very difficult year. Despite all the challenges COVID threw at us, the 2020-21 school year was successful because of all the FSSD family. I remain in awe of you for what was accomplished and how effective you were. As we move into the new school year, we must acknowledge there is significant work to be done as everyone strives for the maximum success of each and every student in the FSSD. Knowing and having witnessed the passion and dedication you've shown not only last year, but in previous years, we look forward to the opportunities of the 21-22 school year. We also must understand COVID is the gift that keeps on giving, unfortunately. And we will have to continue to utilize many of our same mitigation protocols. Those mitigation protocols are less restrictive this year at this point. And the success we have with those protocols will determine if changes have to be made in the future. Last year's TCAP results have been received from the state, and district and school administrators have been analyzing those scores over the past few days. State scores will be announced today. District and school scores will be released August the 11th. Your school administrators will be discussing your school scores at some point this week. While we did well in comparison to the overall state scores, we have significant opportunities ahead of us. We will utilize these TCAP data and all the other instructional data we have to help inform the instructional process for groups as well as individual students. We will celebrate our successes, and there are many, and focus on the areas of need. Keep in mind, and I know you will, state test results are extremely important, but they don't come close to representing all the successes experienced by FSSD students, all thanks to you. I have no doubts you will again rise to meet these challenges, and our students will benefit greatly from your talents, your expertise, your passion, and your dedication. I wish you the very best school year possible. Thank you. I'd like to invite Dr. Decker to introduce the video that we have for you.
We could not let this morning go by without every member of the leadership team taking a few moments to wish you their very warmest welcome to the new year. Please enjoy.
Let no one steal your dream.
Let no one tear apart.
The burning of ambition.
that fires the drive inside your heart.
Let no one steal your dreams.
Let no one tell you that you can't.
Let no one hold you back.
Let no one tell you that you won't.
Set your sights
And keep them fixed.
Set your sights on high. Let no one steal your dreams.
Your only limit is the sky.
Let no one steal your dreams.
Follow your heart.
Follow your soul.
For only when you follow them
Will you feel truly whole.
Set your sights and keep them fixed.
Set your sights on high.
Let no one steal your dreams.
Your only limit is the sky. I hope everyone has a great school year. Thanks for all you do.
And now it's my pleasure to introduce our Curriculum and Professional Learning Supervisor, Ms. Summer Carlton.
Good morning. Dr. John W. Hodge is president and co-founder of Urban Learning and Leadership Center, an organization focused on student achievement and reduction of the achievement gap. He has served as a reading teacher, English teacher, AVID teacher, assistant director of an academy, and inner city school, and many of the interventions used by Urban Learning and Leadership Center. Dr. Hodge received his Bachelor of Science degree from North Carolina A&T State University and his Master of Arts degree from Chapman University. He completed his academic and professional preparation by earning a Doctor of Education degree from Virginia Tech, where he conducted extensive research on factors that contribute to the academic success and/or failure of impoverished children. What sets Dr. John W. Hodge apart in the field of education is his well-documented ability to put research and theory into everyday practice in rural, urban, and suburban schools. Dr. Hodge has helped educators in elementary, middle, and high schools make the necessary changes to help all children meet and exceed rigorous academic standards. Please welcome Dr. John W. Hodge.
Good morning. Glad to see everybody today. I thought I was going to be in a gymnasium, so this is a small gym. But no worries. I'm going to talk to you today about how important you can be in the life of a child. No matter what grade level you teach, no matter what your job is, it is possible for you to impact the lives of children in a positive way. Guys doing the tech, can I walk around or do I need to be still? These are my marks? Okay, cool. You see how I did that and talked to them during a presentation? That's because I'm old. As a young man, I never would have done that, but because I'm old, man, I can do whatever I want. Great. Okay, so we're going to talk today about your impact on children. But I want to start with a truth that you should know. I'm on Twitter a lot, and I would love for you to follow me, and let's link up and just share ideas. But I have a special talent. If you have a laptop that you would like to be broken, let me touch it. Seriously, it's a running joke in my office. Like, I'm so low tech. That's why I kind of kept my distance from these guys, because I didn't want to mess their stuff up. So here is a running joke in our office. I want you to check this. All right, that's me. That's the life of John. Do you guys need to turn this up? Okay, it's not a problem. See, I was in the infantry, so once you've been shot at and you live, you get to do stuff like, go ahead and interrupt. Go ahead, not a problem. All right, because it really is not. The sources of information for today come from several different areas. Personal and professional work experience. Our company had the honor of working with some of Louisiana's highest performing principals after Katrina. We learned a lot from that process. We have been working on and researching social emotional learning since 1997, so I'm bringing that into today's presentation. And actually co-authored a book called Standing in the Gap, a guide to using the same framework to create excellent schools, and SAME stands for social, academic, and moral education. So that's pretty much where the information from today is coming from. I've been busting my tail. All right, that's loud enough. Okay, are we good? All right, awesome, guys. Give them a round of applause. They were cool. Thank you very much, guys. Okay, so one of the things that makes our organization unique is that we're actually two companies. One company does school improvement work, so we're assigned to schools that are seeking improvement all over the country, but primarily in 9 states. There's a whole other company that does mental health support services for children and families. And I cannot tell you how busy that side of the company has been in the last 18 months. And so a lot of what I've learned in recent months come from them, the things that they're doing for children and families. We're only licensed to practice in the Commonwealth of Virginia, but we take the lessons we've learned everywhere we go. So I wanted to share that with you. Our company, Urban Learning and Leadership Center, is a family. We have known each other in some capacity for over 25 years. These are some of my mentors, and I want to share with you our vision for America's schools, because I think you're going to agree with it. We began as school system employees, and in 2003, we started what is now known as Urban Learning and Leadership Center. 17 years later, we have grown tremendously. We have an outstanding team, and through all the challenges, we are still here.
In 2008, the housing market crashed. People don't realize the impact it had on school funding, but it was huge. Despite the circumstances, we still thrived.
With COVID-19 in 2020, everybody was impacted.
You know, over the years, we've all had losses, but with faith, we just kept pushing through, and that's exactly what we must do right now.
All of us, every school district,
every school, every student,
every school system employee, every community member, every parent.
We must all pull together to help kids thrive despite life's challenges.
We've been here a while.
And we'll be here tomorrow.
To help give kids a future without limits.
Without limits.
Without limits.
So that is what we are about as an organization. We don't want a child to have a limit because of the neighborhood they come from or who raised them. And we know without question, if the right support systems are put in place, some of the social risk factors that kids deal with day to day don't have to be a burden or a barrier to high student achievement. So this is our passion. This is a snapshot of my normal schedule pre-COVID. So these bags under my eyes, trust me. And it's kind of getting back to this, and I'm happy about that. These are the states we primarily work in right now. And though we are a small company, we are the preferred vendor in Illinois, like where Chicago is, which is kind of cool. We're really proud of that. What drives us, though, is our why. I think everybody listening to me and everybody in this room should have a why, like the reason you do what you do. And our why is based on the fact that we know what happens to children if they leave us without marketable skills and a plan. And that why drives us. I loved what your superintendent said. Test scores are important, for sure. But what we do is bigger than test scores. It's much larger than that. So for us, this is not a business, it's personal. Because we actually know children who've left unprepared, and we've seen what happens to them. So when you ask me what drives me, what keeps me pumped up every day and enthusiastic and ready to learn and teach, children like this. This little girl is on the state line between Louisiana and Mississippi. She's in one of the most impoverished areas I've ever seen. Some of the homes don't have indoor plumbing. It's been ravaged by weather. If the wind blows your roof off, what do? You put a tarp on that roof and you stay there. The research is overwhelming. It's not even questionable. If this little girl, both of these children, have the right support system, poverty need not stop their progress. If they've got the right support, if they've got the right people buffering some of those risk factors, these children can make it, and that should give us hope. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I had hair when I started. But I'm telling you, it is possible. It is possible, and that's good news for us. So hopefully, at the end of our session, you're going to know how important you can be in the life of a child. This is really important. Now, I could tell you all about my dissertation, give you the research and the theory. You could join the other 5 people who've read the thing. Because it's about this big. So my wife has not read it, full disclosure. But I learned a long time ago, and this is something you should keep with you forever. From one of my mentors, no significant learning takes place without a significant relationship. Just what you teach. You can be a great chemistry teacher, but if you can't connect with your kids, chances are learning is less likely to take place. So instead of telling you only about the research, I'm going to let you get to know me, tell you a little bit about myself, and weave the research into the story, and hopefully by the end of the session, the research will stick with you because you're going to remember the story. Does that make sense? This is like my teacher John here. So I'm going to start over. My name is John, and I grew up during the 60s and the 70s. Go ahead and say I don't look like it. Go ahead. But I did. I'm a 60s and 70s. Who can relate to that? Anybody? Yes. Be proud. We're not dead. Come on. That's right. Being shy about raising your hand. There's only one alternative to another year. Right? So everyone you have, you should be proud of that year. Okay? All right, so I grew up in the 60s and 70s, and I had the best neighborhood. It was not even close. Lovely homes driving into this spot, but I'm telling you, I loved my neighborhood. Any football fans in the audience? A few? Like real fans? All right, so here we go. In my area, we had Jeff Davis, All-American from Clemson, Tony Flack from Georgia, Vince Evans, starting quarterback for the Oakland Raiders. We had Desmond Gatson, All-American from South Carolina State, Braxton Williams, Hall of Famer Charlie Sanders. All of these people grew up in the same area. So when we played football, you got touched. It was real. I just heard Cowboys versus Steelers. That's a football fan right there. Right. I forgot, Trip Wellborn, All-American, University of Michigan. So it was awesome. It was awesome, man. And in my neighborhood, if you were all the way down the street and you didn't want to run all the way back home to get something to drink, guess what you could do? You could go into somebody else's house. That sounds weird. Do we have any 20-somethings in here? No? Some of you look like, all right, that was a compliment. I asked. So, but I'm telling you, 20-somethings think this is weird because a lot of them don't know how this feels. But I know how this feels. Like we were surrounded by love. So you could actually walk into somebody else's house without knocking. Go in, ask for a drink, and they would either fix it for you or tell you to fix it yourself. And back then, the best drink, bar none. What was your best childhood drink? Go ahead, tell me. Somebody tell me. Kool-Aid was pretty good. What else? High C was cool. Water from the water hose. Now, if you drink water from the water hose today, little kids will think you're gonna die, so don't do it. But this gentleman was right. It was Tang, man. Bar none. It wasn't even close. We found out the Brady Bunch drank Tang. It was over. Awesome. So we were little football playing astronauts. That's what we were, right? That's what we were. Football playing astronauts. That's what we were when we were little. everybody had a job. Where I grew up, you could work in the steel industry. The textile industry was huge. There's only one textile mill in North and South Carolina combined. It's on the state line today, but they used to be all over the place. But the number one, what is the number one cash crop in North and South Carolina? Or what was it in the 60s and 70s? Tobacco, very good. It was not weed. I'm saying this to the camera. It was tobacco, right? That's what it was. So this is what this meant. You could graduate from high school at 17 or 18 years old, get a job at RJR Tobacco, and send your kids to college. That was real. In fact, we aspired to that. You had retirement, you had benefits. They even had an orthodontics package. So we knew whose parents worked at RJR because all the kids were smiling all the time. We knew, right? But this was real. We wanted this. In 1970, our world changed, just like last year before. Like our world changed suddenly. And I've seen that kind of change before. Not as broad as COVID, of course, but I saw what change can do to a neighborhood. Because in 1970, we saw our last televised cigarette commercial. It's on Johnny Carson. Look it up. It signaled a change in the tobacco industry because they were aggressively admitting that smoking could kill you. We had Surgeon General's warnings, and sales plummeted, of course, nationally. And the tobacco industry reacted by downsizing. Now, what does that mean in Tennessee? Downsizing. Job loss, right? Okay. Well, what that meant in the Carolinas when I was a little kid was that most of the adults in my neighborhood lost their job on a Thursday. That's what that meant. And the tragedy was not in the job loss only. The tragedy was their skill sets didn't transfer. You couldn't take what you learned at RJR to Sears and make the same wage. And so a lot of the adults were doing what we call stacking jobs. Like you would work 2 shifts, double shifts, or go to one company and then go to another to try to keep your family afloat. And some adults weren't able to do that. And because your mortgage is still due, a lot of them had to leave our neighborhood. A lot of hardworking, God-fearing people left our neighborhood. And people we didn't know moved into the neighborhood. And then the neighborhood got weird, got strained. And it was like a matter of months. It was pretty fast. People we didn't know would come to our neighborhood and stand on corners. That's innocent enough, you think? Other people we didn't know would drive up to those corners at night and give the guys on the corners money, and the guys on the corners would give them little bags. And we were so innocent, we didn't know that was heroin being dealt on the same streets that we played on. There's a movie that touches on it a little bit called American Gangster, and you might not have heard of that movie, but have you heard of Denzel Washington? All right, so he plays the lead, and the lead is this kingpin. That kingpin is from my hometown. So we were wondering how it got to us. Now we know how it got to us, all the way in North Carolina. Not in New York, not in Miami, little North Carolina, little city, got to us. All right, so because the neighborhood dynamic was changing, our mothers, in their infinite wisdom, told us to walk to and from school together. Now, why did they do that? What do you think? Safety in numbers, right? And this is going to sound barbaric to the 20-somethings in the audience, perhaps, but in my neighborhood, other people's parents could spank you. I know it sounds like, ooh, gosh, barbaric. But you were literally raised by a village. So I got more spankings from my next door neighbor's mom than my own, really, because she saw what I was doing. Never mind. All right. So here are my best friends in the world. From a research standpoint, this is a small sampling, N equals 8. but it's a unique group. What you see are our first names and where we ended up. I'm John, I'm on the left. You see our first names and where we ended up. But here's what makes this group interesting. We grew up on the exact same street. And we went to the exact same schools. Same kindergarten, elementary, junior high, high school. 7 of the 8 of us were born in August of the same year. So we think the power went out in November. And our parents had nothing to do. But, well, you know what I mean, right? So we're really close. I mean, we're like brothers. We don't remember not knowing each other. Like my best friend and I were born 7 days apart next door, went to kindergarten and were college roommates. Right? So we don't remember not knowing each other. That's how close we are. I don't have time to talk to you about all of these kids, but I'm going to talk about a couple, and I want you to think about the kids you serve here. Because regardless of race and family income, trust me, they need you. What I'm sharing with you does not apply to impoverished African American kids. It applies to all children. They all need us. Trust me, right? Our little group fits a demographic that seems to be struggling in many of our schools in the country. If you disaggregate your data and you're looking at who's struggling and who's not, kids like us fit that struggling profile oftentimes. But the good news is we can fix that. We can do something about that. Now, my best friend in the world, and you have to participate because I'm in teacher mode here, my best friend in the world was a person we called Crazy Ernie. Say that with me. Crazy Ernie. All right, so I'm using yes. Okay, no problem. Sorry. No worries. Crazy Ernie earned his name in 2nd grade during show and tell. I know we don't play show and tell anymore. It's not the state standard. I get it. But back in the day, we used to play show and tell quite often. It was a common thing, right? So this particular day, all right, no worries, thank you. This particular day was Ernie's day. So our teacher calls us up to the front of the class. We run up because we're in the 2nd grade, we're 7, and we sit crisscross applesauce on the floor, and we wait for Ernie. He walks up proudly to the front of the class. He has this box, and he reaches into the box and pulls out a goldfish bowl with 2 goldfish swimming around in the goldfish bowl, and he proceeded to do a presentation on his goldfish. He told us the feeding schedule, how long they would live, how much they cost, and Ernie ended his presentation with the following, and he has not lived it down since. Crazy Ernie ended his presentation with this: I talked to my goldfish. Then he paused. And they talked back to me. Then he ran. He jetted. Poof, he's gone, right? So we're 7. We're on the floor. We all froze and grinned. You know how little kids do, right? So Paul, the doctor, crawls over to me. And he says, John, because everybody has a nickname in my neighborhood. So I'm John. He says, John, did that fool just say he can talk to fish? I said, yeah, that's what he said. And so little Paul yells out, Crazy Ernie, and the name stuck, right? It stuck. I talked to Ernie last week, and we're old as dirt. That's his name. Still, Crazy Ernie, right? So Ernie was a dreamer, and you have those here. He was a dreamer. He knew early that something was wrong with what was happening in our neighborhood. He could figure it out. In 3rd grade, we're walking home from school, and Crazy Ernie stops the whole group, all of us. He says, guess what, fellas? We say, what? He says, I'm moving. He's 8. And he had figured out that he didn't want to feel afraid walking to and from school anymore. So the solution to that was to move. At 8, he figured this out. He knew it. We said, well, when are you moving, Ernie? Not sure, but I'm moving. Because he knew that what we thought were firecrackers outside at night were not firecrackers. He knew that, and he knew because he lost his brother out there. He knew. So at 8 years old, he decides, I'm moving. So you guys say that with me. I'm moving. All right, say it one more time. I'm moving. So keep that in your brain. I'm moving. That's what he said. He's 8. Okay, we leave elementary school, go to junior high school. Crazy Ernie develops a noticeable talent in mathematics. You've got kids like that, right? They can just get it. He wasn't good in math. He was brilliant. So in 7th, 8th grade, teachers started to notice this kid is special. They're picking this up. We go from junior high school to high school. Crazy Ernie grows 6 inches, becomes a starting quarterback at our high school. It's a big deal then. It's a big deal now. We've won 2 of the last 5 state championships. Just thought you should know. Wanted to share that little bit of information. So he's literally a star. At that time, we get scholarships to the same university as athletes. So literally, we went from birth through college together. We can finish each other's sentences. It's weird, right? But we don't know of a time where we didn't know each other. So our senior year in college, Crazy Ernie runs into our dormitory room. He said, John, I got an idea. I said, now what? Because you always have ideas. He said, listen, I just got my license to buy and sell cars. We've got this huge auction in our city. We can go to the auction, buy ourselves a car for $1,000, and by next Wednesday, we can sell it for 2 or 3. Are you with me? What do you think I said? I said, man, you are crazy. That'll never work. That's a stupid idea. Still playing with goldfish. Because I was going to be rich. I was an English major. All right, so in January of our senior year, Crazy Ernie launched his dream. He began to buy and sell cars one at a time. He had no car lot. He had no building. He had no Instagram, no Facebook, no web page, no Twitter, no email, no cell phone, nothing. He bought cars one at a time and parked them strategically around campus one at a time. He would park in front of areas where there was high traffic, and he put posters in the windshield. The poster said, call this number Monday through Monday, which meant every day, between 9 p.m. and 12 a.m. The phone number was to the one payphone in our dorm. That's how old I am. That was the phone number. We had one payphone for the whole football team, track and baseball, one phone. That was interesting. That's a whole keynote, the phone. But anyway, from 9 to 12, Crazy Ernie sat by that phone while other athletes laughed at him. Like me, I was a drum major of laughing at Ernie. Between January and May of our senior year, Crazy Ernie sold 14 cars. He's making $2,000 per car from a dorm. I still thought he was crazy. So when we graduated, I fulfilled a time-honored tradition in my family. If you were born a boy, there's this unwritten rule that they start to tell you when you're like 3 in my family. It's a thing. And nobody really says it directly, but it's a thing. When I graduated from college, I joined the United States Army. That's me, bottom right-hand corner, looking sad, because that's basic training. You're supposed to look sad. That's me sad. I was very sad and cold, by the way. And when I tell people it's a thing, this is a big, look at that wall. This is a thing with us, right? So the unwritten rule is you have to serve your family, your country. So I moved away, and back then, you had to actually write on a piece of paper to stay in touch and fold that piece of paper up and put it in this thing called an envelope. Put 2 addresses on that envelope and a thing called a stamp. You put all of that in a magic box and you wait for 2 days. That is a text. That was a text for us. Seriously. It was hard to stay in touch. So I stayed away from home for a few years for a lot of reasons. But I decided to go on leave and find my boy Ernie. So I go on leave. I got my uniform on. I go to my old neighborhood. I'm going to people's homes. They're feeding me, giving me hugs. That was awesome. I miss that. I do. That was something, even when my neighborhood went to Hades, it was still love there, believe it or not. So I go to Ernie's mom's house. And where I'm from, you call ladies by their first name, preceded by Miss. So I called Ernie's mom, Miss Doris. I show up at the door, I knock, and she opens the door and gives me a big hug, calls me John, asks me if I want some lemon pound cake. That's how she, yeah, I do, for sure. So we're talking, I said, where's E? She said, John, you didn't know. I said, no what? She says, tell you what, go over to Bessemer and you'll find Ernie. I thought, Bessemer Avenue, that's where all the car dealerships were. Why would he be there? Because that didn't happen for kids like us. Think about not just where I was born, but when I was born. That didn't happen. So I'm driving my piece of a car. I had a Chrysler Fifth Avenue with a pencil in the radio to turn the volume up and down. You had to jiggle the pencil. And I can tell you guys can't relate to such an experience. But that was the car my dad gave me, so that's what I drove. Anyway, I make a left turn on the Bessemer Avenue, and there's a billboard with a picture of Crazy Ernie on it, going like this. I said, no way, right? So I drive on to the parking lot, past a row of luxury cars, and I park in the back just in case he did work there, because I didn't want him to see the Fifth Avenue. Anyway, so I walk in. There's this gigantic desk. I want you to be there with me. So it's like huge. It's across the whole front of the building. And I see 5 people working, and I pick a lady who I thought was my age now. So back then, I thought she was old. I said, ma'am, I'm looking for Ernest. Does he work for you? And she grinned and smiled. She said, no, sir. He owns the dealership. Crazy Ernie from my neighborhood, Goldfish Ernie, owns all those cars outside. That's why I love your video. It said, don't let anybody steal your dream. So nobody told Ernie he could do that. Nobody. His best friend didn't tell him he could do that, but he did it. So all of a sudden, out walks Crazy Ernie. I'm going to show my age again. All right, so Crazy Ernie walks out in a tailored 3-button suit. Those weren't even out yet, right? So that was hot. The only other person I'd seen with a 3-button suit was James Bond, 007. So Ernie walks out looking like James Bond. I said, E, what's that thing in your hand, man? He said, oh, this? He said, this is my car phone. That was about this big, right? You remember there were little cases you could drop? He says, man, everybody's going to have one of these one day. And of course, the English major says, no way, right? The first thing out of his mouth after we embraced, the first thing, he says, John, I want to take you to my house, man. And I said, I've already been to your house. And Crazy Ernie, almost 20 years later, says to me, I moved. Write it down again. Keep that with you. I moved. It's bigger than test scores, right? That's bigger than test scores. So, in the house, on the other side of Ernie was B. And B was a child who's tough to love. Have you met one in your career? Right? Yeah, we met him, right? I am not making excuses. The military in me will not allow me to do that. However, seek first understanding. B-boy, for us to remain safe after our neighborhood got crazy, the best way to do that is to project toughness, even if you're not tough. Does that make sense? because you didn't want those corner boys to get to you. So you had to act as if you were tougher than you were. And B-boy was the best at that. He was an expert at projecting toughness, right? And he graduated from high school without marketable skills. Where's our job market at the time? It's gone, right? Low SAT scores, GPA of a 1.2. He's stuck in our city when most of his best friends leave. One thing led to another, and I'm told he got into some sort of altercation where the other gentleman was like 4 feet away, and that gentleman pulled out a high caliber weapon and shot B point blank in his sternum right here, and the bullet went straight through him. Took a part of his spine right out with it. And B-boy, just think as a researcher and then think as a human being, okay? As a researcher, B-boy died in a puddle of his own blood in a parking lot. And his next door neighbor, who went to the exact same schools, has a parking lot full of luxury cars. You got to step back and say, well, how did that happen? And you can say the same thing as a human being. How does that happen? What was it? Well, my sister calls me. I'm back at the unit. My sister calls me, and we didn't have phones in our rooms back then. So if you got a phone call, it went to a payphone or your commanding officer. And you did not want to go to your commanding officer's office because whenever you do, it's bad news. So they call me downstairs. I've got my first sergeant, my squad leader, my CO, my commanding officer there, and they say, John, you need to take this phone call. And I pick it up. My sister yells, B is dead. And because I was being watched, I tried to maintain my composure and say, how do you die in your 20s? And she says, come home. She doesn't give me an answer. So my commanding officer, who I'm connected with to this day, let me go home. That was rare, because B was not a blood relative. But he saw I was broken. And this is before social and emotional wellness even mattered to people. It mattered, but people didn't know. But he saw something changed in me, and he let me go. I go home. I go straight from the airport to the church to see my friend, because I was just broken. And I walk down this long aisle, and I see B in a box. And what I was unable to process and still have difficulty with processing is that I'm a big guy. B was bigger than me. He's 6'6". And in this casket, he looked small. And it did something to me. I don't know what it did. I've been to therapy. I don't know what that did to me, but it did something. And I go back to my unit, and I'm hesitating. And in the infantry, you can't hesitate because you get yourself and other people killed. So I talked to my CO again and said, sir, I'm struggling here. And we didn't have the mechanisms in place to really deal with that at the time. So he said, let me think about it. You come back, we'll talk. So he thinks about it, and I go back. And he said, Hodge, you served your country. He said, go home and make a difference. And so that's what I did. I went home, and I started teaching reading in my old neighborhood. But I never forgot about B. How's this for data analysis? In elementary school, he's the smartest kid on the slide. What happened to him? Don't know. But in elementary school, B was smarter than a doctor, 2 businessmen. He's smarter than all of us. It's not even close. So I go up to Virginia, about 4 or 5 hours away, and I start my career up there. Now, one thing I want you to remember about Paul, and if you have something to write with, you might want to write this one down. This is important. Little Paul graduated from high school with a 4.2 grade point average. He received a full academic scholarship, graduated with honors, graduated from medical school, bought his Lexus from Ernie, but Paul could not read in the second grade. Just wrap your brain around that. Now, B is smarter than Paul. Paul can't read. Paul ends up a doctor, and B ends up dead. It's crazy, right? So I'm up in Virginia, and I don't know how many of you gentlemen have sisters? Raise your hands. Okay, you will relate to this. My sisters and my mom decided that it was time to get me married. Now just think about that. They decided it was time to get me married. And so my mother called me at work on a Tuesday. I'm a school administrator now, right? She said, and she's very dignified. John, I expect to see you here on Saturday. Why, Ma? There's a young lady who I want you to escort to our community ball. Had a ball every year, right? And the color theme this year is blue. I expect to see you. This is my mom. She's a teacher. This is how she taught. I expect to see you in a tuxedo and a blue tie. Yes, ma'am. That's Tuesday. Well, ladies, men talk to themselves when you're not around. We do. So after that phone call with my mom, I started talking to myself. I said to myself, who paid for this house? It's my bachelor pad. I'm looking around. I did. Who paid for that car outside, even though Ernie gave me a great deal? I paid for that car. So the next day, I called my mom and left a message. I timed it to where she was at choir practice, and I called, Mom, I can't go. Click. And then I talked to myself again like I was playing football. Yeah. Going to a ball. So I think I'm good to go. Thursday passes. I don't hear a thing from home. So I'm happy. It's Friday. I'm in the cafeteria doing cafeteria duty. I'm monitoring. And he's 7th grader, 12 years old, runs to the cafeteria. He says, Dr. Hodge, there's a man on the phone in the office who says he's your father, and he is not happy. See, my parents, when the neighborhood went to Hades, wouldn't move. My dad, a Marine, said, I was here first. Let them move me. And nobody moved him, right? So he calls me at work. He never does stuff like this, ever. To help you know my dad, if Clint Eastwood were a black dude, that's Dad. It's legendary. I'm serious, right? So I go to the office, and I ran from the cafeteria, so I had a few followers, like, kind of jogging behind me, being nosy, right? So I get to like 15 people in the office, and I walk to the phone. I say, yes, sir. He says, hey, better see you here tomorrow. Click. I kept talking on the phone because I didn't want them to know he hung up on me. So I spent the next minute talking to a dial tone. Yeah, Dad, great hearing from you too. He's long gone, right? Now, I knew that I was going to make that trip. So I put on my tuxedo. I'm so mad I didn't want to put the tie on. So I go to this young lady's house. I knock on the door. Her dad answers. He says, oh, you're my little girl's date. I say, yes, sir. He says, let me go get her. Now, I want to be gentle here. I'm sure that her dad, in many opinions, is a handsome man. But you wouldn't want a girl to look like him. And he was my only data point at this point, right? So I said a prayer that every guy in here has said at one time. Dear Lord, please don't let her look like her daddy. That is so true. He's a dignified man, though. He was. That's how I felt. This is how I felt like. In fact, I asked my mom why I had to take the young lady to the ball. Guess what she said? What do you think my mom said? Mom, why do I have to take her? I have to drive 4 hours to take this young lady on this date. What do you think my mom said? Because I said so, it's much worse than that. Much worse. She said, because she can't get a date. That's not a motivating statement. So he goes to get his little girl, and out walks Rochelle. Mom, I have the world record for putting on a blue tie. It was there. And we go out on this date, and a few years later, I pop the question, and we are getting married. Now, something I want to say, since this is opening convocation. The blind date's still going on decades later, which is kind of cool. She's a teacher. But she's still daddy's little girl. And daddy, that dignified man, was a custodian who took pride in his job. And people who make floors shine like this ought to be celebrated publicly, because it requires all of us being a part of the journey, right? So we decide to get married. I'm not a bachelor party guy. You can probably tell. It's not my thing. So before the wedding, we had a cookout. You might call it a barbecue. We had a cookout and had hot dogs and tang. Very special tang. The kind of tang made in the hills of North Carolina by my uncle in shacks that look remarkably like that one, right? And I'm sure somewhere in the hills of Tennessee, there are other people that do the same thing. So we had special tang. And we're drinking tang and talking about life. And little Paul stands up, full of tang. He says, John, help me out with something. He says, people pay you to speak. That's your job. And imagine a person full of tang saying it, because that's what he said. And I had a little tang in me, so I replied, yeah, but that's not all I do. My primary job is XYZ. No, you're taking it the wrong way. He says, people actually pay you to talk? That's what you do? I say, yeah. He says, John, when we were little, didn't you stutter? He says, man, I don't remember how your voice sounds. You never talked. People pay you to speak now? Yep, still stutter if my sisters make me mad. But now you're going to notice I'm very deliberate in how I speak, very purposeful and very slow. You'll notice it now that I've told you. But here's what was happening that night, and you got to take this with you this year, because I think it's a miracle. Here's what was happening. Remember little Paul couldn't read, right? So the night before I get married, a boy who could not read is asking a boy who could not speak, how did we get here? What was it? All the crazy stuff happening in our neighborhood. We're walking a mile to school, seeing all that stuff. How did we get here? And they're calling me doctor. Well, the answer is consistent with the research. It should motivate you and scare you to death. Because here's the answer. All the little boys on the left side had the same 5th grade teacher. One person can make a huge difference. Miss Geraldine Dawson, did not care what your neighborhood looked like. That's my street. It's not my house because my dad said, don't be taking pictures of my house and showing it to people. Yes, sir. That's what happens when an economy crashes. Yards go away, homes look different. Little Paul, last door on the right. A doctor came out of that. Miss Dawson is the only teacher we ever had who came to our neighborhood. Coaches did. She's the only teacher. We were playing outside, and it was like the ball froze in the air, and we saw her car. It was a red car, and we knew it was her because she had an elephant on her dashboard, because she's in a sorority that likes elephants. And she drove past us, and we chased the car like little puppies, like we ran. And she went to Paul's grandmother's house and told her Paul was college material. How did she know? Second day of school. How did she know? She believed it first. And she was right. She was absolutely right. The entire trajectory of a child's life can be changed for the better due to the actions of one person. And the research is staggering. You can't even question it. You can't. And that person just might be you, if you're listening. Might be. So, we're going to take a short little conversation, 60-second break, and I want you to talk to whomever will talk back to you. What can we take from this intro? What can we take as a district? So, take 60 seconds and conversate, and we'll get back to it. Go ahead. Oh, yeah. Like here? Okay. All right. Boy. All righty. Because we are in a hybrid instructional model, we've got people watching and people here. We're not going to share out, but I want you to hold those thoughts because the whole purpose of showing that to you is for you to take something with you, all right? Let's say about what I just shared with you. Hattie has done quite a bit of work on something called effect size. And effect size, put super simply, means impact. So if you implement a program, it would be logical for you to see if that program is working. And one way of looking at whether or not it's working is effect size. And effect size simply means impact. So you might want to know the impact of a program or a policy or a person, really, a strategy. And Hattie's done a lot of the work for us by looking at thousands of studies and 150 million children. So this is significant. Hattie says that if you're dealing with poverty in a school, 2%, 5%, 10%, doesn't matter. Kids who are impoverished have a more difficult time reaching some of our higher academic standards. So Hattie says that the effect of poverty is negative 0.12, negative. So what that means simply is that poverty makes high student achievement more difficult. It doesn't make it impossible, but it does make it more difficult. Like a science project, you assume kids have materials at home, and some of them don't. So poverty makes high student achievement more difficult. Let's lock that in, negative 0.12. All right, so Jensen gives us these effect size ranges. And he tells us, I like his descriptors better than other people, so I use them. He says that if something has an impact on effect size of 0.0 to 0.2, the effect is unclear. So if you implement a program, wouldn't you want the effect to be clear? You want to know, hey, this worked. He says if something has an effect size of 0.2 to 0.4, the effect is small or moderate. Now, 0.2 is what we call statistically significant, but we want to go beyond that. We want stuff to really have an impact, right? He says 0.4 to 0.6, the effect is very strong. 0.6, 2.0, the effect is extreme. And that's the sweet spot. We want 0.4 to 2.0 in general. Given what we know and what we discussed this morning, where would you place the effect of a teacher or a caring adult on student achievement? Where would you place teacher or caring adult on this scale? I'll give you 30 seconds to talk to somebody and figure that out. What would you say? I'll tell you, my first time being asked this, I said very strong. That was my answer. Not to change yours, but that was my answer. All right, so how many of us would put the effect at 0.0, 0.2? None? Okay, 0.2 to 0.4? 0.4 to 0.6? Few of us? All right. 0.6 to 2.0? All right, so let's look at what Jensen says. 0.98. Man. So the effect of a teacher or caring adult is extreme. And that's good news for us. That means that many of the social risk factors that children face, whether it's lack of funding or funds at home, they're impoverished, lack of support, because you can be from an affluent family and still not be supported. Regardless of the risk factor, a caring adult can make success more likely. So I'm not here to tell you it's easy. I'm here to tell you it's possible with all of your children, and that's good news. So here's more good news. Feedback has an effect size of 1.13. Extreme. Instructional quality, 1.0. Extreme. You see the pattern here? Direct instruction, 0.82. Extreme. Class environment, very strong. And who is in charge of all of this? We are. If you're dealing with social risk factors, there's a lot of stuff you can't control. There's a lot of stuff happening in homes and communities that we should not control. Not our business, right? But this stuff, we control. And since we control it, we can directly impact what happens to our children academically. So that is fantastic news. If you're a counselor in the audience, there's been research on having comprehensive counseling programs, and what they found, and this is from a population of over 22,000 kids, if kids are exposed to a quality counseling program, a complete one, they report feeling safer attending their schools. They believe that their education was more relevant, and they were more satisfied with the quality of education. Wow, now what's that mean? Let's look at Hattie now that we've looked at this. Hattie tells us that if a student's disposition is positive, that effect is 0.61. And 0.61 on this scale is what? It's extreme. So if we just change the student's disposition, the effect is extreme. And so, anything we do that positively impacts a child's feeling about being in a school or coming to school, making them feel wanted and appreciated and loved, can impact their disposition. And if we impact that, we impact student achievement. This next video clip is hard to hear. It's poor quality because I filmed it at home. When I saw this on TV, I said to myself, I got to capture this and show people because it blew me away. I'm doing a lot of work with the American Dairy Association, and we're talking about nutrition a lot. And this young man describes what he had to do with himself and his little sister during a really tough time period in their life. And it blew me away. It's very short though. Let's take a listen.
I never forget, me and my sister for about a week and a half ate teaspoons of peanut butter, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And that's all, that's the way we survived. I had a can of peanut butter in my book bag, and I would give myself a teaspoon and her a teaspoon for breakfast, you know, and when we met up after school, her a teaspoon, me a teaspoon for lunch, and for dinner, her a teaspoon, me a teaspoon.
Now, do you think a kid going through that might have a negative disposition at school? Real possible, correct? So if we can do things that will shift that disposition, we've got a shot at helping these kids achieve. So if you work in a cafeteria, you are special. We need you too. All right, this is not good enough. Though this story motivates us, because definitely Miss Dawson was a superhero. She's a teacher, and when she passed, 3,000 people showed up. It's like a congressman. Everybody crying. Pro football players just crying. I'm telling you, she was special. But this is not good enough. It's good enough if you're on the left side of the screen, but if you're on the right, it's not good enough. So why do we have meetings like this? Why do we do this? Our job, no matter what your position is in this room, our job is to make the best of what we do in our schools so systemic that it does not matter which teacher you get. Right? You don't look up and get Miss Dawson because everybody's her. And on a personal note, I know this. If B had her in 5th grade, he'd be alive. I know this. I have no question in my mind, in my heart or mind. If he had her, he wouldn't be dead. So it's personal with me, right? So how do we do this? Like, what should we do? All right. In general, what we should consider is being holistic in how we approach education. What we suggest is something called the SAME framework. If you're looking at any of Castle's work on social emotional learning, this is perfectly aligned because we were studying them before they were even called Castle. In general, in a school, if you want to achieve and sustain excellence for everybody, you have to address the social environment, which deals with how members of the school community behave. That's part of our school's culture. You have to address the academic environment, which deals with how members of the school community engage in teaching and learning. And then there's the moral environment, which deals with what members of the school community believe. And all of these things have to be addressed within a culture of distributed leadership, which means the Lone Ranger is dead. It's going to take all of us. But if we all work together, we can make a difference for all children. So let me let you hear a little bit about this book and our approach.
It's finally here, Volume 4 of Standing in the Gap. All new relevant content to help educators face all the new challenges of teaching. Educating kids socially, academically, and morally, while meeting the social and emotional needs of students and staff is the only way to ensure success. Standing in the Gap offers step-by-step instructions as well as advice. A school's moral code doesn't apply exclusively to students. It does no good to preach good values to students if they don't see them come to life in the most persuasive teaching tool of all, the actions of the adults around them. Order Volume 4 of Standing in the Gap today to learn about social domain that defines behavior, the academic domain that defines learning practices, and the moral domain that defines the non-negotiable belief systems necessary for all kids to be successful, regardless of their zip code, race, or family income. Written by leaders in education, this book helps faculties realize that challenging circumstances need not justify academic failure. Order your copy of Standing in the Gap Volume 4 today, online, or by calling Urban Learning and Leadership Center.
And basically, that book explains the approach. It's not a product you buy. The approach is just a way to frame your work. as an educator. And I'm telling you, if we want to reach all children, we've got to be holistic. We have a basic philosophy, a fundamental philosophy as a group. We believe that children ought to be held accountable. That's a part of life. But we cannot and should not hold children accountable for positive behaviors that we haven't taught or modeled. We have to overtly model the behaviors we desire, especially now. Think about the input and the experiences and the content that children view on YouTube. No matter what the family's income is, think about that. In some ways, we have to counteract some of those things so that our kids are prepared for life. So this is just a general philosophy we have as an organization. And the reason we say that is if I never see it, I can't be it. And it might be something as simple as kindness. Like if I never see kindness, then I don't know how to show kindness. If I never see work ethic or empathy, if I don't see that stuff, I can't be it. So this is just a way that we guide how we interact with schools. Children model what they see. All right? In general, children model what they see. So we have to be what we want them to become. If you want kids to show up enthusiastic for learning on Mondays and Fridays, it's hard to say, but say it. Go ahead. We have to, which might mean you fake it some days. You fake other stuff. I got a whole presentation called The Stuff We Fake. You do. But I'm telling you, the children are watching us. And they should be. They model what they see. So we have to be what we want them to become. That's just a fundamental practice, a fundamental rule. So these ideas were first piloted in a high poverty school in Newport News, Virginia. And you're welcome to visit if you would like. They do tours now. I'm not there anymore, but I'm still a part of the family. But this was a starting point where we implemented this same approach. So let's just look at the social domain. The social domain deals with how members of the school community behave. And remember I told you, you have to overtly model the behaviors you desire. And we disaggregated our data, and we found that we had 2 hot zones with office discipline referrals. Who can relate to this? Right? And you know, this is how smart I was. Genius me. How many monitors do we have in the cafeteria during lunch? We have 3. So smart me, I said, let's put 6 in there. That'll fix it. That did nothing. All it did was double the amount of discipline referrals I got. That was it. That's all it did. It did nothing for student behavior. And one of our teachers stood up during a faculty meeting and said, John, have we ever taught our children how to eat? Like when we send them to you, what do? And I thought she was joking. I said, I'd tell them not to do what they just did. She says, have we ever taught them what we expect? What was the answer? Nope, we had not. So we put a call out to our large faith community. We were serving over 900 kids at the time, K through 8. And we were blessed with Miss B. In this video clip, she's in her 80s. You tell me she looks like she's in her 80s. And she taught what she called home training. I didn't even know what it was till my secretary said, it means etiquette. I want you to see what it means to overtly teach the behaviors you desire. All right? So here's a sample.
Children we service would never see this until it's too late when they're in front of a group of people and they're embarrassed. If they take it home, as I hope they do, practice on your little sisters and brothers, it'll become a part of them and become very important in their everyday life to look like you're somebody going someplace.
I love that lady. My goodness. She's not with us, but she gave us 7 years and not one discipline referral from her class. I want you to look like you're somebody going someplace. So pull up your pants. Let's look at your posture. Let's learn how to shake hands, eye contact. I mean, she was a master. And we only had, like, our superintendent said, we better protect instructional time, and he was right. So we could only do these kinds of things in the morning. You would call it homeroom or advisory or morning meeting. But in a year, office discipline referrals were cut by 60%. Because kids knew what we meant. Not that they were using formal dining practices in the cafeteria, but in general, the behavior changed. And that's the point of overtly modeling the behaviors you desire. We worked on establishing a culture because we wanted children to feel like somebody was waiting for them at school, like we want to see you every day. So a teacher suggested that we treat kids like we're glad to see them every day, right? So what do? Well, let's just shake their hands and say, hey, every day. 900 kids are coming in the building. Let's just say, hey, we're glad to see you. Thanks for coming. Attendance got better just from that. I could tell you stories just from that little thing that prove that sometimes the little things matter. Here's how that looked. You're going to see a very young version of me, so don't laugh. And at the time, this was a failing school, but we were working on culture, all right? So keep that in mind. We believe in high standards. We believe in accountability here. And we look at standards of learning as a good thing. It's a roadmap. The way you teach it, the way you deliver content in your classroom leaves you a whole lot of room for creativity. The etiquette class, tennis as a social bridge, as a source of physical fitness. We greet every student who walks into our door with a handshake every morning. What that allows us to do is see how the student is doing that day. It also is teaching them how to interact in the business community. A firm handshake goes a long way. We know that. These are skills that we know will make our students more well-rounded. There's a definite greater focus on exactly what needs to be taught now. Great teaching went on before, but of course we focus with standards too. And we don't seek to just meet the standard. Our goal here is to surpass the standard, and we really do believe we can. On paper, we were still a failing school. Full disclosure, that was after a year of working on culture. So it wasn't instant, but I want you to know it's possible. Just changing little parts of how we spend our day can have an impact on children. In each of these environments, there are things that we need to focus on among the adults in the building and things we should focus on among the kids in the building. Because together we create the school's culture. Why is this whole adult-student dynamic important? And I want to make this personal. I want you to understand, I'm feeling this. This is real. My wife is probably the best teacher I've ever seen. She's won Teacher of the Year 5 times in 25 years. And she has had a tough year. A tough, tough year. So we've got to take care of the people who take care of kids, especially now, because of the challenges we all had in the past year. She told me this a few months ago. Just take this in. I've got 10 kids who've lost parents. And she's at an affluent school. 10 kids. So do you think the kids might be bringing baggage to school? Yeah. Yeah. But here's another thing. That's the kid part. But she's an adult in the school, right? She's dealing with the kids who have the baggage. That's us. This is how many deaths we've dealt with as a family this past year. Do you think my wife might be carrying some baggage to school? This is in addition to, in my mental health business, we know of 22 suicides. Kids 12 to 19. We're a small company. So we've got to take care of each other this year. We have to be mindful of that. And if we are, we can have a great year. Here's some of the things that people are worried about.
Kids are coming back to school. How are we going to give students the support they need? What's the plan for August 2021 when larger numbers of kids return? Will we be ready? What should we be doing right now?
Too many of my kids have fallen behind. How can I help them catch up?
How can I create an emotionally safe classroom so that trauma does not prevent learning?
It's not just the kids who are struggling. How can I support the social and emotional needs of my staff?
Are all these questions keeping you up at night?
They are keeping people up at night, and you won't solve them without a plan. It's got to be written down. You got down. And don't be reactive to social emotional support. Be proactive. Because we know going in this year that we've got people coming to us who have really had some tough times. So be proactive. Our organization has a group that's working on social emotional support for school that's non-therapeutic. Just showing people how to compartmentalize and cope is something that we think is important. So be mindful of that this year. Something really simple that we've used in lots of schools is something called win time. Win time gives us, during our grade level, department, or PLC meetings, a time for a teacher to ask for help without feeling embarrassed. WIN stands for what I need. Build that into how you interact with each other in case someone has a real need or real stress you don't know about. So this is a simple strategy, and it's free, that you can build into your schedules so that you hear when people are struggling. This is important, especially now. So we're going to end. I know data is important. So in this high poverty school, K through 8, we started in 1999 with full implementation. Every state has their own testing system. I heard yours TCAP, right? Is that it? Okay. Well, in the Commonwealth of Virginia, our testing system is, and I'm not making this up, our testing system is called I don't know what drunk politician came up with this name, right? But it was really a gift if you're a person who likes to laugh. Because among other possible interpretations, SOL means Standards of Learning. All right? And on our Standards of Learning assessment, here's where we ended up in 5 years. In 5 years. So I'm not here to tell you it's instant, nor am I here to tell you it's easy, because it's not. I'm here to tell you it's possible. I want to reiterate also, or share with you, that algebra and geometry in 8th grade were offered as high school credits. And 70% of our kids were in one of those two classes after 5 years because of vertical teaming, K through 8. Talking about the content, where kids need to be in the previous year to be successful in the following year. But here's where we started. So again, I'm not telling you it's easy. It didn't take 2 years. It took how many? 5 years, okay? But what we do is bigger than test scores. So I'm going to close with this. These are my former students, one of our requirements. And when I work with schools, our team, we have about 30 consultants. When we work with schools, we set goals for kids, short-term and long-term. And your long-term goal is your dream. And I want you to hear some of my former students. They're going to tell you what their dreams are. And pay close attention to Franklin. He's the second young man. I want you to listen to the second young man you see, Franklin. You guys ready? All right, we're going to close with this.
My dream is to become an aerospace engineer or a civil engineer.
My dream is to go into the military and become a mechanical engineer. My dream is to become an architect.
My dream is to be a very successful teacher. My dream is to be a judge or a sailor. Graduate with honors, want to go to University of Virginia. I want to be a basketball player. When I retire, I want to be an engineer.
My dream, when I grow up, is to be a speech pathologist.
To be a veterinarian.
And architectural engineer.
My dream is to be a Navy SEAL.
This is our future right here.
That little Navy SEAL meant that, trust me. He meant it. All right, so Franklin.
My dream is to become an aerospace engineer or a civil engineer.
My dream is to go into the military and become a mechanical engineer.
He's 14 years old. He says, I want to go in the military and become a mechanical engineer. He's clear. But what you don't know is some nights on the way to that dream, Franklin had to sleep in a car. Not a house, not a bed, a car. But his dream was bigger than that car. Years later, I'm mowing the lawn. Postman comes to the house, jumps out of the Jeep. John, you've got to see this. He hands me a package, and inside that package, I get a note from good old Franklin saying, I'm graduating from the Naval Academy. So we go to graduation. And we find Franklin. And he was unable to speak. And we were unable to speak. And he sees my wife and I, and he goes like this. He shows us his degree. And on that degree, it says mechanical engineering. Because it's bigger than test scores. This is why you want the test scores. He sent us a few other invitations. There's Franklin marrying his sweetheart. And I think this might be the only reason I'm here. A couple weeks ago, Franklin comes back, right? He decides to honor us by having his promotion ceremony at our school, right? And Franklin, his wife gave a speech, and he starts handing out flowers to his teachers, just like I would have for Miss Dawson, right? And Franklin was pinned lieutenant commander, a little boy who slept in a car. So, poverty need not be a barrier to high student achievement. The right systems and supports are put into place. Thank you so much, guys, and good luck this year. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Got one little small strategy. Depending on what you're dealing with your student populations, it might be tough to believe that they can make it anyway. So Marzano gives us a recommendation that I would suggest to you. He wrote it in The Art and Science of Teaching. He says that if you're having problems with your belief system, acknowledge it. Not to the child, but to yourself. He says acknowledge it. You might want to write this one down. Acknowledge it and then act in contradiction to it. In other words, treat him like he can graduate. Not on graduation day, but when you first meet him. And his mom is scared to death to leave him with you, you say, welcome to the class of 2022. You say that. Because if you do and believe it, it'll happen. All right, guys, thank you so much.